Is it going to load? There we go. Hey, welcome everybody. This is the book club, and this week we are doing Action Comics 340, first appearance of Parasite, and we are going to have Matt lead off. He picked this book, so let's get right on into it.
Okay, well, first let's describe the story a little bit. So, um, the story begins, okay, with Superman in a laboratory trying to help the scientists with a radioactive substance. He manages to do what he had to do with the substance, and the lab puts the substance in a lead container. Meanwhile, Maxwell Jensen is is the janitor of the area. He resents having to work there and stuff, and he thinks that, oh, it says radioactive, but I hear they put payroll in these things to deter thieves. Well, he opens it up, and sure enough, it's radioactive rock, and he
Not the smartest criminal
they
ever.
don't, no, he's not, and then he turns into the parasite. It is when the scientists come over to go, good God, Jensen, are you okay? That he discovers he has the power to steal people's life energy. Sure
Yeah.
enough, he goes around stealing the life energy. There is this panel shows where he's stealing it from a bunch of people. Meanwhile, Clark Kent gets to the Daily Planet, and he's told, get over to the hospital site where Superman's building a hospital today. And of course, faithfully, Superman flies by the flop house that the parasite is in, and the parasite feels the rush of power as Superman goes through, thus figuring out he can steal power from Superman.
Mhm.
So, sure enough, they get to the hospital, and the parasite is all. This is a trope from every Parasite book, pretty much that I've read. Parasite disguises himself with a fedora hat and some sort of trench coat.
Yeah, that's all
And
you need. It's either that or glasses.
yes, apparently. And sure enough, he happens to see Clark get a little weak when he's by, and he figures out, hey, that must be Superman in disguise.
That is very neat that not a lot of supervillains just from the jump know his secret identity. That's a big
Well,
deal to me. So
it's
that's cool.
because it's because he got that jolt the second he
Yeah,
flies
he can
by.
recognize where it's
He
coming
can
from.
recognize it immediately. It's so strong that he can get it faster. So sure enough, he decides, oh, I've got to go. I'm going to go fix things so I can steal all his energy. Meanwhile, Superman builds the hospital, and just as he gets the hospital finished, the parasite goes on robs a bank. So Superman goes, and the parasite has made himself a nice little costume.
Well, the parasite robbed the bank on purpose to get
Yes, to get
Superman's attention.
Superman there.
Yeah.
And I mean, face it, he doesn't need money, right? What's he going to do with money? And
Mhm.
sure enough, he's stealing the powers, and Superman is on the ground, and he's getting weaker and weaker as this fight goes on. And then Lois shows up, and of course, she gets, into trouble right away. So Superman's got to push her out of the way. And he plays weak. And when the parasite says, "I know your identity, come down here and fight like a man," he does, because
Mhm. Superman's very
and
honorable.
Superman is honorable and all that stuff. So he decides to try heat vision, which only tells the parasite, "Oh yeah, I got all your powers. Thanks for reminding me." And she uses heat
Mm.
vision, and the fight goes on. The fight goes on. Then he plays dead, so to speak, in the end as the fight continues. And then once he plays dead, he comes up then and starts hitting him harder, but he's still getting weaker and weaker. And the parasite is getting stronger and stronger until all of a sudden he realizes he has to get away from Superman because he's absorbed so much of Superman's energy and powers that his body cannot handle it. and with a big explosion, he disintegrates. And the story ends with Lois and Superman in a panel where Superman but he was beaten by his own greed. He had enough power to take the world, but he wanted immortality. He didn't realize, though, his parasitic ability allowed him to sap my power, that his body was still mortal. It was too frail to contain the awesome energies he absorbed. And that is the end. And just for fun, here's the pinup in the book that
they put a
if
cute
you ever
little
buy
pinup. Yeah.
if you ever buy this book, people, make sure it has this pinup. Because
Yeah.
one, it interferes with both stories in the book, and two, this is it's like the 181 dilemma. It's not a complete book without the pinup.
Yeah, read the signature if you don't mind.
Yeah, it says Clark Kent, doesn't it?
No.
Oh no,
Superman.
with best
It says
wishes from your
Superman.
super pal Superman. Yes.
Yep.
So, anyways, that is the first appearance of the parasite. Lucky for us, in later issues, he manages to reform himself, so the disintegration is not permanent. But it was a cool way
Who wrote the story again?
Jim Shooter.
Jim
I was
Shooter.
just about to give you the story was written by Jim Shooter. The cover was done with Kurt Swan pencils and George Klein inks, and the inside story was done by Al Plastino on both pencils and inks.
Very cool.
So I will personally come out and say I love this book. It is one of the best Silver Age books, period. Certainly for its time period from 62 to 65, or sorry, 67, I mean, with the go-go checks. But it's definitely one of the best written books from this period, as far as I'm concerned. So I will begin with the cover. The cover is Kurt Swan. If there is not a better Superman artist out there, I don't know who it would be. I give this a 5. It's Kurt Swan.
Ooh.
I am in love with Kurt Swan's art. He is by far 100% my favorite artist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mad at that. Whenever I first start collecting, I would say Kurt Swan and Kirby's my favorite, but as years go by, Jack Burnley is my favorite Superman artist, but that's completely fine.
But there's a reason why before they identified artists, they used to call Barks the good duck artist. Well, they used to call Swan
Absolutely.
the
good Superman artist.
That's true.
Okay. So inside, the art by Al Plastino is just a shade different. Plastino has his good moments. Most of his work, this is good, but there are a couple panels where they could have been drawn a little better. Like I find that he was not consistent with the parasite's face. The shading, for example, like sometimes he had sunken cheeks, other times he forgot to put it there. So I will give the interior art a 4.
Okay.
For that reason only.
Okay.
The writing, it is probably, at the time that this was done, this was probably Shooter's best story ever. So I will give the writing a 4.5.
Yeah.
And I will give the book overall a 4.25. Because although I personally think it is as close to a perfect comic book as it can be, in terms of what a comic book is to be in the story, but the little bits of art and the little, because he doesn't use his full name in here. He gets his full name in the next story where he just uses the last name here of Jensen.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he didn't finish all the stuff he should. He should have finished the name, and there should have been a little more about okay, I get that he's unhappy being a janitor, but it's just I hate my life kind of thing. Right off the bat, there's no and
well,
that's
they
that
could have easily put in a couple panels where
exactly
scientists were looking down on him. Oh,
yeah,
you're stupid. You're
yes, exactly.
something.
This is a 15-year-old. He was 15 at the time of writing this book. So
yeah,
I'm going to give him some leeway.
I give him some.
I give him some leeway, which is why I still gave it the mark I did.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, overall, as I said, it's a 4.25. and
Okay.
Good job.
I like it.
I can live with that.
Very good job, Matt. I appreciate that. I didn't have to do
Was asking, is Jim Shooter?
Jim Shooter. Yeah, very young Jim Shooter did this story. Shout outs to GTK, Collecto 6, Beckerman, Kenneth Bird, Hazoo. Is there anybody else in here?
Susie
No.
and Ken.
Oh, Susie. Good to see Susie too.
Yeah,
And
Susie's
yeah,
here.
Bird. I said, okay. All right. So this is a must-have book. This has been on my top 5 speculation about 20 times. He might be in the new movie. That's besides all the point. This is a classic, nostalgic Kurt Swan. Beauty, beauty, beauty. It kind of reminds me of the Brainiac. Maybe Shooter got a little bit of inspiration. Well, not Shooter, Kurt Swan, but Kurt Swan didn't need to be inspired. It's the same cover anyways. Brainiac punches no, Superman punches at Brainiac in the Brainiac issue, and Parasite punches at Superman in this one. So I always looked at that dynamic as something, he's purple, like the purple cover. I don't know. It's a whole thing with me. I just get too into it. It's kind of got like this is gonna sound weird, but it kind of has like a Marvel feel to it with the little guys in the back, like that, like FF48.
Like Kirby, you mean? The Kirby people?
It's kind of got like people in the back, like a Kirby book, like the FF48. People in the back in astonishment, and
I could see that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Well, to be honest, it makes it even more because Kurt Swan didn't tend to put that kind of detail and stuff. He would have just made it maybe 1 or 2 figures in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
The fact that he filled it out shows that there was a big deal.
So,
and the first panel is quite nice, yeah.
But the first panel is Al Plastino, so
very well done. Beautiful introduction. This is your first appearance in Parasite. You see him all in his glory from the very beginning. Very smartly done. Jim Shooter is such a talent, man. That guy.
Yeah, actually, I really like that first panel. That was awesome.
I feel like all of this book, I read a lot of DC Superman, and this is just done differently. This feels like a whole different style, a whole different vibe. This isn't play around DC where you got like, Lois banging the devil, or this is like legit. Like, this is as close to a Marvel book as you get in DC. Like, this is like a real first appearance. This is real continuity. This is going to come up later. This is there's an importance to this, and like Matt was saying, he kind of got the trope where he's messing with the radioactive stuff and he gets turned into a superhero, and that happens a lot in these comic books. I found the inside art and the story to be, it's a little wordy, but overall, very well done. This is better than average inside art to me.
Well, at that time, they were phasing out Wayne Boring, right? They were phasing him out, and Al Plastino and Kurt Schaffenberger were taking on the secondary Kurt Swan stories. Like, Kurt Swan was the #1 artist, and then those two were doing a lot of the super books.
I'd say the biggest flaw in the whole book to me is, Superman is kind of always helping the city with their construction, and he like
I hate to be a construction worker in that city, but okay.
Yeah, he's just building.
Maybe he is a member of the union.
he's building the hospital or whatever. And then the other thing is Parasite's disguise is it's pretty laughable. You're a purple guy. I don't care if you got duster on.
It reminds me of The Thing.
You
you mentioned
point. That's a good point.
It's like so similar.
That's why I say it's always a fedora and a trench coat.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's super smart. Like, he's doing a crime to get the superhero to come to him, which I appreciate that. That's kind of smart. You know, oh, I'm robbing a bank. Psych. I'm trying to get you to come so I can steal your
Yeah.
power. And
Hey,
I didn't
Biggie,
like,
Biggie, I gotta back out for a minute. I gotta call my work.
Okay, man, no
All
All right,
problem.
bye.
It's pretty smart. And Parasite is beating them pretty good. Great action panels.
Yeah, lots of good fighting.
Yes, I will agree there. Like that. That's what I'm saying. It's just like there's a lot of dialogue in it too. But
That's
the
why
fact
you
that they're
went-
fighting,
yeah.
if this was done in this day and age, there'd be no dialogue. It would just be smack, whack.
Yeah. Other things that they did smartly was they had dialogue, but they also had the internal monologues, like where they're
Yeah.
thinking about
Yeah.
what's going on, and you're kind of
Yeah.
We're
seeing
talking
what-
about like 6 pages of them fighting too. It's not a little
That's
bit of
right.
fighting.
Yeah, and fighting in like a situation where you get to see that this is a real problem. Like Superman might lose this battle. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
That's a good point.
actually, there are a lot of the Parasite books. At some point, Parasite has him on the ropes, and each time he fails to finish him because Superman's just that much smarter.
Now,
Mhm.
I didn't ask Matt if we weren't supposed to read the Supergirl story. I'm going to briefly talk about that.
I didn't read the other stories. I just read the.
I did.
Parasite.
I
was
said
busy
I
this
was
week.
specific, just the Superman story.
Well, the art for the Supergirl story is done very well. So if anybody ever does get this book, just know
That's Jim Mooney who does the art for that.
it's a very well. There is a Supergirl story, just as long as the Parasite, pretty much, and she's just kind of in disguise and she's fighting the war and blah blah blah. But I didn't hate it. It was not as good as the Parasite. But anyways, Superman wins because Parasite couldn't. And at the end, you kind of think, oh, maybe that's the end of Parasite, but we know he comes back and all that stuff. I'm going to go ahead and give my scores. What up, Frank White? Good to see you. My score for the cover. See, this is why I give myself some wiggle room. Like last week, Alan gave the
Wonder
Golden
Woman.
Age Wonder Woman a 5.
I love that cover.
It's a great cover. Matt gives this one a 5 this week. I still haven't got quite a 5. My perfect comic book covers, it's maybe 30 of all of the comics. So
If it has
I'm
Hulk
gonna-
Hogan on it, it's a 5 for Biggie.
no, that's not.
That's joking.
It's just got to be really, really good.
I'll write the scores right now. So
Oh, you'll do it. Okay. So my score for the cover. Let me give it one more gander. I'm very nostalgic and sentimentally attached to this book. It is a must-have, like I said. For the amount of money you spend on a book, this might be the most undervalued book.
Oh, it's really undervalued.
It's stupid
Yes.
undervalued.
Yeah.
I never understood how you can get this for 30 or 40 bucks, but that's the way it goes, I guess.
I think it's usually more than that, though. More like
I paid
$100.
$100 for mine.
You can find them for 30. If you look, there's $30-$40 issues.
Yeah,
Deb.
but
That
mine
is-
is a
that
better.
is
Mine is a better
scandalous.
copy.
Yeah.
Admittedly.
My centerfold's detached, but it is complete. But it's a pretty nice copy too. So I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay.
It's not quite as good as a Kirby cover. It is one of Swan's best covers. It's not one of his best covers. I still have about 3 or 4 Swan covers. Now, I love Swan. I kind of like his Superman when Superman's a little smaller figure. I don't like his normal size Superman. I like his Superman a little smaller, but that's just the way I look at it.
Mhm.
So yeah, I give it a 4. The inside art, man, as good as this cover art is and as high of a score I give it, I feel like I like the inside art just about as damn much.
Mhm.
Like, you
Al
guys,
Pacino is a
That's
really
what I was
good
going to say, too,
artist.
actually.
yeah, I didn't know what y'all was leaning towards, but I'm just going out on a limb and I'm going to give it the same. I'm going to give it a 4. It is fantastic inside art. Looking back at it now and just being able to appreciate it, like there's some killer panels. Like look at this one right here where he's getting blasted with the radiant energy right there. That is some good stuff, man.
Mhm.
Um
I almost had a bit of pre-code horror vibe there when he's getting like almost looks like he's
Yeah.
melting, you know.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
good.
If you put it in a superhero story, it's okay.
He look like seriously, it has like that whole like
Because
Yeah.
melted man
not
look.
long after this, was that Batman story with the guy who becomes the glowing skeleton.
Yeah.
Well, the Star Spangled Banner Man or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so this Superman right here is the weakest part of the inside art, in my opinion. I didn't
Yeah,
like the way
that's what I'm saying. Like that
It was inconsistent.
I didn't
as
like the way the
there was a
Superman looked
panel
right
or
there.
two. That's why I didn't give it a bigger score. There was
But
a panel.
everything else, like the scientists look specific to their own. Like everything else looks very well done. That
Well,
one
the thing that I
Superman,
like is the characters look individualistic. Like
yeah,
it's not like I find some when you read the comics, everybody looks the same. It's really messed up. But this everyone has their own unique look.
yeah. So for me, like for some reason, the Superman's kind of drawn the goofiest. Like this Superman right here isn't the greatest either, but everything else is fantastic. Like for me. Anyways, I'll move past that. You know, I just give myself some room for a better book. The story, I'm gonna give a solid 4, and overall, I think we're gonna go 4. 1 point away
Okay.
from 5. Yep, nothing too crazy, but a clean 4 all the way around.
Okay, so I'm going to give you my insight on it. So the very first first panel, which is the full page, it really sets you up because it's basically saying, you know, what the powers are of the parasite that he drains people. Right off the bat, you get that. They tell you what it's. There's no spoilers. Or just this is it. This is what Superman's going to be facing. And then they go into the origin story of the parasite, which I liked. I liked the fact that they kind of did this. I like the fact that they sort of set him up to be a bit stupid in terms of his motivation to actually open up this container. But one thing, there was a couple things that bothered me, and I'll like this is me being the nerdy or guy who's like very picky about stuff. Okay, so when he opened up the container, it said that it infused with every single cell of his body. Okay? And that's really important to remember because when he drains people, he doesn't just drain their life force. It's more than that. It's their intellect, their strengths, everything about them he absorbs. Okay? And so that is where he actually understands what he is. He calls himself a parasite because scientifically he understands what he is. So therefore he's a parasite because that's the technical term for what he is, because he's absorbed some scientists and gotten that knowledge. Okay? So I like that, but he should have been getting smarter and smarter and more devious with that. And he did kind of set up some of that where he was
unfortunately he doesn't get to keep it when the power goes away. That's why.
Yeah, and they really should have shown that. Like they showed that he got weaker, that the way they explained it in the book was that you know, he burns up their energy really really fast, like within a few minutes.
One of the later parasites, like there are 4 or 5 of them, right? One of the later parasites gets written that they can remember things. So this particular one remembers that Clark Kent is Superman.
Okay.
Like for example, so.
Okay, so I would have liked that a little bit, like where like maybe some of those things kind of remained a bit. I kind of wanted them more to be like Rogue, where she gets to keep some of those powers a bit more, you know what I mean, and have that kind of flow through. And so when you get to the part where he's starting to drain Superman, it reminded me of some movie. I forgot what. I think it was either a Star Trek episode or something where there's some bad guy, or this is a trope where you you know, the bad guy can absorb people's powers, and the way you kill them is you give them too much power. I think there's actually an episode of Spider-Man that's like that, right? With Electro.
Yes.
So you know, it's kind of a trope. I felt that was kind of a cheat ending. I kind of wanted some other method. That was the only thing that was like for me a bit of a disappointment, like that sort of trope ending. Um, and it didn't really make sense because, as I said, every cell of his body had this built into it. So therefore, it should have no, it's not, he's not the mortal anymore. He is whatever this thing is. So there shouldn't be the limits that they're somehow putting on him. That was my one, kind of nerdish gripe with it.
You
So,
got to
yeah.
remember though what I put. I had to remember this. One, he's 15. Two, he's meant as a one-shot character, so they didn't really
Yeah.
put much
Well, it was
thought
very.
into.
That was the other thing that kind of bothered me. That they set him up actually really great. I mean, they actually created a really great character. I love the idea of giving your superhero a character, a villain that they cannot beat. And actually, in this case, it's a superhero. It's a villain who, for Superman, is the worst. Because the more strength Superman shows, the more powerful the parasite becomes, and that's actually the worst type of enemy. So, he basically is something that feeds off of that power. A wimpy superhero would probably do better against the parasite than Superman, which is actually interesting. So,
The parasite would be the ultimate world's finest villain because, in the sense that okay, he's stolen Superman's power, but that means he also has his weakness. Have some kryptonite, and then Batman can knock him out.
That I was thinking that they were going to do that. I was like, oh, maybe you not only absorb their strengths but their weaknesses. That would have been kind of a cool twist. And then Lois Lane could have been like, oh, I just have this kryptonite, something. They could have set it up. They could have done something that way. So the writing, I actually, for a 15-year-old, wow, kudos. I mean, really good writing. I actually really enjoyed it. So, okay, so we're gonna start with the cover. I give the cover a 3.5. It's not a Wonder Woman 1. It's not that good. But I give it a 3.5. I like the fact that on the cover you do have that. It's similar to that first page where you do have that. This is what the character is. This is him on the cover. I love when you get the first appearance on the cover. So definitely a 3.5. Very strong cover. Next is the interior art. I actually thought the interior art was solid. I would say it's about the same as the cover in that respect. I would give it a 3.5. So both are equally good. The writing. I'm actually, I would have given a much higher score if it wasn't for that end. I'm being really picky on the end. I just didn't feel like it nailed it. I think it tied up things a little too easily.
Yeah, I think that they should have let Parasite win. I hate to say that, but Superman always seems to get the win at the end. Maybe this issue. Let us have a little doubt,
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, I understand where they were going with this. They wanted it to be a self-contained issue.
Yes, and it was,
in a way
they only
that
had
was
14 pages.
Yeah, and the fact that they did this all in 14 pages is pretty impressive. They
But
told
you're
the
also
whole origin
forgetting
story.
that Biggie, the code said that the villains have to lose.
Yeah, that's
This
another
was a
problem.
code book.
Is that a code? I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah,
Is
that is the code actually. That is.
Oh
a code.
my god!
Yeah, no, that is actually a code.
It's the reason why the Joker book in the 70s only lasted 9 issues, because the Joker could never win. He had to be in police custody at the end of every book.
Oh my god! I did not know that.
Yeah,
that's part of the comics code, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
wow.
What I kind of want, I don't mind the villain winning. Like I think they just, it's they did really write it as a one shot. I just don't know why they took such a great character. That obviously somebody who's the editor must have realized, hey, this is a really great idea.
Well, that's why Mort Weisinger brought him back.
Well, I know. I'm just saying, but my point
is
the
editor that will Mort Weisinger.
How was Galactus and Doom able to win? If I mean, by the end of their issues, there was questionable wins. Like
their stories carried over to the next issue.
So it continued on. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay, so writing, I would have given it like a 4.5 even. I'm going to give the writing a 4. I thought it was very solid. I actually really enjoyed the writing. And then overall, I guess 3.5 plus 3.5 plus 4. That's 11 divided by 4 is whatever that is.
3.6, 3.75.
3.75, we'll say.
Okay.
Okay, so I actually really enjoyed it. Good choice, Matt. Very good choice.
Yeah, great job, Alan. That I really think you guys nailed it this week. I really am happy with y'all's reviews this week. Good job. Very well.
All right.
Now it's D that has to wow us with his knowledge.
Guys, first of all, I want to tell you, I had to take a phone call from work, and it's one of my drivers going, "Oh, you sent off a route to a driver that's off tomorrow. Put it on my truck." And then I do all this work, getting it flipped over to his truck, calling my people at work, telling them what to do, and then he calls me back. "Sorry, man, it looks like he is actually back tomorrow, so just leave it on his truck." And I just went, "Stop using drugs, Kale.
You're
no more
fired.
drugs."
You're fired.
He's actually a good driver, but he feels awful. All right. So, Action Comics 340. I like this book a lot. The story was really fun. It taught me something about Parasite. I didn't know that Rudy Jones wasn't the original Parasite.
No, he's the second one.
I've gathered that now, but before today, when I read this book, I thought it was Rudy Jones is the OG, and so you guys highlighted all the good stuff about the book. I will say that I love Kurt Swan's art. I liked it a lot better in the 80s. In the Silver Age, I didn't care, and the art is good. I just don't care for that style of Superman. It looks a little too middle-aged, in my opinion.
Well,
But
part of
that's
the thing was he had
Matt,
different.
Matt, this is my review. Give me a second, bro. All right. So, but that's not drawn poorly. It's just how Superman was drawn back then. So I'm not against Kurt Swan's art here. It's just not my image of Superman that's
I
ingrained
can
in my head.
appreciate that. That's a fair point, D.
I will give
So-
you that part.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I love Kurt Swan, and it's really hard to. Yeah, Kurt Swan is probably one of the biggest reasons I like comics so much. So,
Well, I say the same thing about Dan Jurgens, and I did not shit my pants when everyone said that they didn't love his art as much as I did. So we'll be okay. But inside the book, I'm a little more critical of the art. And more so like the coloring was weird sometimes, but it didn't throw me off. I mean, some panels are worse than others. I get this one right here.
He's a bit chunky there.
Yeah, he's a bit chunky. He's got a blue hand with a thumb hole in there. Like it's a weird little panel.
I had the same issues, D. You're right.
And then when there's this part where we talked about it already. He's at the lab helping the government with their weapons of death, and he goes, "Now back to the Daily Planet" as Clark Kent. And when he gets back to the Daily Planet, and just a few panels later, he's like talking about how he had caught a falling plane, and that's why he was late to getting to work. Like, no, man, you were literally just at the lab working on radioactive elements and whatnot. Don't give me that catching a plane crap. He's making up excuses in his own head, or they have a continuity issue.
I find that Metropolis has a lot of falling planes.
Yeah,
They do.
they have bad air traffic controllers, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah. But yeah, no, the story was really fun. And I'm not a Parasite expert, but the one that I'm familiar with, he usually has to touch the character to get his power. This one, he just had to be in the vicinity. He's already
Nearby, yeah.
which makes him way more dangerous. So, but really cool. I love perseverance stories where they're up against the ropes. They're not giving up, and that's how they really portrayed Superman in here. He kept digging deep and getting back up, which shows you he's the type of character worthy of the power of Superman. Because, like you put that power in me, and I might get real comfy being invulnerable, but once I start getting my ass kicked, I might just lay down and take a nap, So, like Superman, he held in there really good when he was getting his butt whooped. But we've said this about a lot of the books that we have reviewed. And this fight was going strong. It was going strong. And then it ended in 3 panels. Just bam. Oh, he couldn't take it. He exploded. He's dead now. Right? And it makes sense that he would explode. It makes sense that his power was too much for him to be able to fully contain it. But it ended wicked quick. It might be the quickest ending that we've had of a book, where it went from where we're in full swing of story to pump the brakes. It's over. We got to wrap. We got a full splash page to put in here and a backup Supergirl story. And so it might be interesting for us to keep track of. Like a lot of these books have the backup story in them. How many of those wrap really quickly?
Really fast, yeah.
Because it happened.
I mentioned that as well.
Alan had issues with it, and we talked about the comics code. I don't know if you're aware. I didn't know, but according to them, they said the code was that the hero had to win. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me. That comic code was very restrictive. So,
Draconian.
and then
thing is, the good thing is, if you read the second appearance of the Parasite, he did learn from the first one, and he tries to not be as close to Superman all the time so that he doesn't absorb too much energy at once.
That makes sense.
And
I'll tell you, the splash page that they put in there, that looks like ass.
They got Superman. You don't like it? I do like it. Do you like it?
No, I hate it.
Oh, I love
Look at
it.
his tiny little arms, dude.
Oh, I love it.
He's got little T-Rex arms and this weird random lightning bolt like that. Oh, that whole thing, man. Matt earlier gave the advice to not buy one of these books without that splash page in it.
Now you
I would recommend that you buy it without it completely. Just make sure that sucker's out of it.
You can't. The last page of the story is on the other side of the splash page.
It's that bad. All right. It is worth it to affect 2 stories and have an incomplete book. And the ending of the first story, it wraps so quickly. Like
you're better off without it.
So let's just get rid of that splash page. We kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It's fantastic. But hey, guys, listen. I really like this book. I pointed out some of the things I don't like because that's what I'm better at. And I think that's an important thing for me to admit to myself. Because of the style of art that I prefer of Superman, I do love Kurt Swan, but like I said, I'm an 80s Kurt Swan fan. If you look at 80s Kurt Swan, you'll tell that there's a big time difference. I give the cover a 3.25. I think it's above average. I think it's a cool cover. I get taken out of it when there's word bubbles on the cover. And I know that's a big Silver Age thing, especially with Superman books. So
I always loved those word bubbles, actually.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm going to do my reading in the inside of the book.
I think modern books could use a word bubble once in a while.
Yeah,
It adds an interesting dynamic to the cover that's not always there.
Well, I mean, and you definitely reviewed it for a 5, so I'm giving it a 3.25. The story, I'm going to give it a 3.5. I enjoyed the story. Biggie said it was wordy, and it was, but for me, it was always telling the story, and I wanted to keep reading it. So that it can be as wordy as it wants, as long as I don't finish a page and go, wish that wasn't there. And that never happened in this book. So 3.5 on the story. The interior art, I'm going to go with 2.
Wow.
I really disliked how inconsistent Superman's shape was throughout the book, because he got very inconsistent. I mean, this little. Look at that. That's really bad.
I like that. I think that's
Oh, yeah,
Actually,
yeah,
I
dude.
like that too.
yeah. I love
No.
it.
That's actually one of my
Now this-
favorite panels.
Yeah, that's what mine too. Superman.
That's
You're
so
right
funny.
though. The Superman is kind of sloppy. in
Yeah,
a lot of it.
that's why I didn't give it a perfect score because the
No, I
Superman.
actually like the way he looks there. He looks like
No, he looks like he's
older even.
pooping. He's pooping.
No, he looks, but he's drained, right? That's the whole idea. I actually
Oh,
like
there-
that panel.
There was one thing I noticed in this, and I know they do it in other books, but I was reading it. There's a panel where I'm like, hey, do I read to the right or do I go down?
I made that
And-
mistake on one of them. They put the little arrows, but
They put the arrows in there, so it tells
Yeah.
you read downwards, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then it goes, then you can read this one. So I like the little arrows. I think that's a cool thing. It either needs to be really obvious or I like the arrows. They're a good touch. So what did I do here so far? I rated a
You just got
cover.
overall left, bro.
All right, so overall, I'm gonna give it a overall of a 3.
Okay.
Okay.
I can appreciate that.
I mean that's still a solid score.
Yeah, none of
No,
it.
no, and I liked the book. It's, but you gotta, if you look back at all of my reviews, I haven't rated anything super high.
No.
No, yeah,
so-
you're usually the most
Mm.
harsh.
And I
And
admit
even, go ahead.
my love of the book it does affect my scores in a way.
Absolutely, and that's fair. You pick the book, you like the book, you give it
Yeah,
high
you're gonna
scores.
give it a
I can
higher
appreciate
score, yeah.
that. I gave
Well,
it very high scores too. I was 1 away from 5 every time, dude.
And I will tell you that, like, when you look at my reviews of my own books that I picked, I also tag them on things that I didn't love. So I'm not saying that everyone should be like, whatever. You get what I'm saying. I've been tough on all the books, even the ones that I liked or picked.
D is my thinker. D is always thinking, dude. He'll think of something I don't, and I always appreciate that about D. And I think you're right about the if you're a pure Superman fan and you don't have a pure love for Kurt Swan like maybe me or Matt does, and you see a sloppy ass Superman, I could see why it would piss him off. I could see why that would piss you off.
Mhm.
But shout outs to Low Grade Hero. That's my boy. Go check him out on Instagram. He does YouTube too. Callie's in the chat. GT Key.
Hi, Callie.
So I'm gonna get the scores. You guys can talk about it if you want.
Okay.
I'm gonna find a
who's
Kurt Swan
next week,
cover.
actually, you're Biggie. Is it you?
I get the next pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is probably in my top 10 books, like the favorites of all time, kind of like the Uncle Scrooge was one of yours there, Alan. So
Yeah, I mean, this is like the quintessential comic, like superhero story.
Yeah,
like,
here's the hero, here's the villain, they fight.
and the villain seems like, oh, there's no way the hero can beat him.
Yeah.
How are we gonna resolve this? It's a good. It's a good.
Yeah, I am a little curious about the '80s Kurt Swan D's talking about. I'm not much of a expert on any of that.
And
I'm looking for one.
for one, he doesn't have to really save Lois. He just pushes her out of the way and she takes it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they can fight.
So, I always curious, like how they should
That's a nice
explain how Superman can recharge.
Damn, Kurt Swan did that. That's fantastic.
I know
Yeah.
that's Kirk Swan. That's cool. That's the first
This is the
appearance
first-
of what's his name?
Superboy Prime.
Superboy Prime. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Al Williamson is the inker on that one.
But yeah, no, that's when I think Kurt Swan Superman, I'm thinking more in the mid '80s, like or early to mid '80s, kind of like the right around the Crisis, like the beginning of Crisis and right before it. Like that's my Kurt Swan, and I do like Kurt Swan a lot, so that I am not shitting on him at all. He was matching a style of Superman that was the accepted version of Superman in that era. So Kurt Swan didn't fuck him up at all.
Mhm.
Kurt Swan His best inker was Murphy Anderson. There's a reason they call that team Swanderson.
Yeah, Murphy's good at really good at drawing.
They worked together from 1971, 72 till just before Crisis.
Now, this might be one of the highest scored books I think
it
there
is.
are. Me and Matt scored this one pretty high. Alan wasn't harsh on it either. The lowest score was a 2, and that's almost half. We got a 60 out of 80 on this one.
Very high.
Wow, 75.
Yeah, it's a pretty good score. I am very much a fan of this book too. It was one of the first books I bought when I started collecting. It's like I said, it's very affordable and it's a very important book in my opinion. It's a real true first. You didn't get a lot of those for Superman, not in the Silver Age. That was incredible or worth getting, and it's a great done. And a lot of the imagination of Jim Shooter's blows my mind. At that age, he's doing adult content, and he's able to produce that. Like that might be like Matt said, that might be their best book in that gap.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So. All right, I'm going to show y'all my book for next week. I almost picked it last week. I don't know who did the art. I don't know who did the story. I don't know who did the inside art. But I do know I think that the way this ends with Quicksilver and Magneto, it's such a good book. If it's the same one, I think it is. We're going with X Factor 92. Let me make myself big.
X Factor 92.
First Exodus.
Okay. It's one that that one.
This is the best of the hologram books, except for maybe the Adamantium one.
I really gotta collect those hologram books. I don't think I have many in my collection.
Let me make sure that this is just. I think me and Alan have done this. So I did it.
I got the stories mixed up.
It is. I just looked it up. It is definitely the first appearance of Exodus, so you don't need to look for it.
I want to make sure the end is the way I think it is, because
it's a Joe Quesada cover. Cliff Van Meter was the interior artist. No, Joe Quesada was the interior arts too.
Oh yeah, this is the way I remember it. Oh, you guys are gonna love this, I think.
All right, X Factor.
Okay, cool.
Interesting
I'll
choice.
take
Okay.
I have never read an X Factor book, so this will be
This is the only
yeah,
one
me
you need
either,
to read,
actually.
bro. It's the only one that I recommend. And maybe there's others.
This is part of one of my favorite little crossover events of X-Men, the Fatal Attraction storyline.
Yes.
So, I mean, Matt, I know it might be a tough thing to swallow the whole story here, but I'm trying to see if I have it in trade. It's not that much. It's like 6 issues, I think. I think the book makes a lot more sense. Yeah, it makes a lot more sense to read it all. I think if you just read 92, it might be you're not really going to understand what was happening before it or right after it.
Go shop at GT Keys eBay. Do you want to answer that question he gave you there, Matt?
That question if you
Either
want.
one of y'all.
Yeah, I can answer the question, but let Alan go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
So a penciler is somebody that just puts down the basic layout of the page. An inker actually then traces or adds detail to that basic penciling. Sometimes the pencilers can do very detailed things, but usually the details are being added by the inker, depending on the inker. Actually, again, some inkers actually remove details, but
Like
for
Vince
most,
Valletta?
Which person do you think's best or most important job? Do you think?
Well, it really depends on, like, for example, Dave Stevens inks are amazing. He adds so much detail.
Oh, so I'm just showing you how thick the story is. It's not the thickest one. And X Factor 92 is the first issue of the Fatal Attraction storyline. So if you finish it, then and you like it, then you keep it rocking. Because this
Yeah,
is a
maybe
cool
we'll go
issue.
to the next one. If you guys like the story enough, the next person can pick the next issue if you would like, but no big deal.
No, this is a really cool issue, and y'all will see some cool stuff in here.
You're going to see some really important, cool. When I first read this as a kid, D, I thought, is that the first time that happened? If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I was like, is this the first time they know this? Because if it is, this is an important book, but it probably wasn't. I don't know. It seemed like it was if you read it. So we'll see.
So definitely one I'll read. I don't think I own the book, so.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're gonna wrap up. Matt just did a video with Steppo about old DC. You want to tell them what's going on your channel, Matt?
Well, let's see. This week I'm showing off stuff I got at the Ottawa Comic Con, and very soon I have a video up of the Parasite coming up. I took an extensive research on it, and an appearance on Alan's channel on Friday.
Yeah,
that's true.
I might show up too. I might have to get an invite from you. So what's going on in your
Yeah,
channel?
I'll throw it up on the club. So with me, tomorrow you'll get to see the first part of this latest unboxing that I'm doing. It's a lot of really cool stuff. It should be fun. And it's actually going to be 15 parts, I believe, the total unboxing. It's just a massive amount of stuff. I was shocked by some of the... I forgot that I had bought certain major keys. I thought, oh, it's just like some small things. There's some pretty big books, including...
Oh, hold on! Don't tell me. DHB 150, the Nazi.
That's for me.
This is
that's
a Matt book.
Oh, that's Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Kelly,
Yes,
Kelly,
good
if you're
one.
still there, there's your book.
Buffy
Kelly,
the
thank
Vampire
you.
Slayer.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you very much, Kelly.
It was well received. And it looks like a really solid copy, actually. I might switch it out. My copy's a little bit more nice.
Yeah, he won't know the difference. Alan, you could do that, no problem.
No, it's just joking. It's a very nice copy. So I'll give you that and a little extra surprise too, Matt, when we meet.
Cool.
That's pretty much all that's going on my channel. I think I dropped my first interview from the Ottawa Con this weekend as well. So
cool, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Big D, you could catch D on my channel. Any chance I can get him on there, I always love having D on, and you catch him on this show with the book club. So
well, you two are quite you guys. It's obvious you're good. You work well together. So
yeah,
we're gonna get on out of here. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed Action 340. It was a lot of fun. Matt picked.
Super chat.
Okay.
Super chat.
Wow, super chat.
Oh, thanks. Hey, great legend. Thank you so much. And been cooking and watching at the same time. This has been excellent. Biggie reminds me of Seawood's Modern Men, but I get to say, Biggie, you and this panel, brother D, Alan, and Matt. God bless you guys, and NWO for life. For life, dude. Thank you so much.
Very nice.
That was very nice of you. So we're going to head on out of here. Big Great Legend dropped some super chat for us, and thank you guys so much. See y'all next week. We're going to be reading about X Factor and First Exodus and all that jazz.
Biggie. Biggie.